Welcome to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. The podcast that will connect you to resources regionally and nationwide to engage them in open, honest discussions so that we can inspire the growth that you need to chase the experience you want. So strap yourself in because here we go. Well, everyone, welcome to the Chasing Your Experience podcast, the very first episode that's going to be video, and so you actually get to see our smiling faces. And I couldn't think of a better guest to be with me on the very first video episode other than the scrape doctor himself, James Holm. How are you, sir?
Hey, Sean, I'm doing okay. I don't know if I'd be the best guest to have on as your first video guest, but here we go. I'm glad to be back. I'm excited to be back, and good to see you, by the way.
And that's what I like about this is we could see each other, and I reciprocate that. It's good to see you as well. Glad to see things in Michigan are going good outside of the weather.
Man, I just don't know if it's ever going to warm up. We're back to almost snowing here again today. We're low 40s.
Yeah, we're not there yet. I don't know if we're going to get that cold again. Finally, I know you and I talked a little bit through Instagram, talk about mushrooms, and you were waiting for mushrooms to start popping because it's that time of year for morels. I finally found my first big blonde, and it's about the size of my hand when I found it, and that's the only one I found that's been worth that size.
Oh wow!
Found a few small grays and stuff, but it just hasn't been a good year for me down this way. So. But I've seen some posts where some people have had some really good luck, but not this guy.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures now here locally that there's some guys that have found a few. So might be time to go poke around a little bit in a couple spots.
Yeah, most of my spring, the only reason I really got into morels is because I was turkey hunting, and then I happened to come across one. And back when I was a kid, one of my friends, him and his dad would look for them, and I got to try on them, but I kind of forgot what they were like, what they tasted like. I knew they were pretty good. So I found this big blonde. I was out turkey hunting several years ago, and my wife has never had them before. So I, picked it, brought it back to the house, and cut it up, and we fried it up. And she tried it, fell in love with them. So now every spring we're out looking. Now it's on now. So every spring we're out looking for them.
Yeah. I'm the only one in my house that eats them. So, but they don't stay around long. Look, if you eat, they either get eaten up or they get sold around here. They're a hot commodity. They're easy to get rid of. So
yeah, I didn't know there's like so many variations of them. There's not like three different, I guess you could say, little variations: the blacks, the grays, and the
there's
blondes.
more than that, really. Honestly, we get the blacks, the grays, the whites, and then those big yellow ones. So we've got 4 different ones here, and there's some red kind, I guess, out west. They're fire morels, and they're red. They come up. So there's a few, I guess, different, all the same thing to me. I like the dark ones, the blacks, the best to eat. Those big blondes I don't pick.
Really?
No, I don't pick them. Even if I stumble upon them as I'm picking other mushrooms, I just don't pick them. I don't care for them. So
yeah, and then we grays and the yellows or the blondes, as we say, is the ones we predominantly get, and because I'm really not good at finding them. The blacks definitely get by me because they don't get very big. I haven't noticed a lot of actual big blacks.
Well, they stay small. They don't get real big.
And usually by the time I do,
up here, the grays don't get real big either. They stay relatively short.
Yeah. Mine maybe a finger length might be the biggest of the grays I find, maybe a tad bit, but the yellow ones, they get pretty big.
Yeah, they get big, those big yellow ones.
That's probably why I find them so much, because they're big for me to see them.
They stand way up above everything else, yeah.
Right. I can actually see the stupid things.
Yeah.
So we finished up a 3-part series last year, and so you and I have been in talks for a little bit, and we got more to talk about, obviously, but we've been talking, so I think we're getting ready to start hitting them up with definitely another multi-part series to come up, and we got a lot to talk about, a lot of developments, a lot of things, and just dive a little bit deeper into each one of those concepts that we talked about last year, and maybe even introduce some new ones. But we don't have to rush off to get right in that one, right? We got some catching up to do.
Yeah, for sure.
So you and I were talking a little bit off air a little bit, and you're looking at getting into a new bow.
Yeah, we're thinking about that. We're thinking about coming back around to the compounds. Gonna Gonna probably pick up a bear, one of their flagships. I'm not looking to spend a gob of money to get back into this because I don't know if I'll even be able to do it. Truthfully, it's just something I want to try to do again for myself. You know what I mean? I enjoy it. It's just fun to do.
Hmm.
So we'll get something where I can start low and build my way back up. So get that muscle memory back and start flinging arrows.
Yeah, I tell you, Bear Archery is. I'm not sponsored by them, by the way, folks. I have no sponsors whatsoever. Bear Archery, I think they have probably some of the best lines for entry level, and also like the grow with you bows. Like, so you can. There, a lot of their bows has a very wide range of draw weights on the same
Yeah,
bow. Like you can get from like 50 to 70. Like it's and also
yeah.
the huge list of like draw lengths.
They have just huge adjustability, weight wise,
Yeah,
draw wise. They go from 10 to 70 pounds.
yeah.
I
So I
mean,
mean,
little
and
kids right
that'd be
on up
great.
to, anybody. So,
That'd be great to just jump into that, so that anybody jumping into it, so that you'll start off a little bit lighter, but as you build up the muscle, the muscles into the draw cycle and stuff, you'll be able to jump up and weight a little bit, so you're not like stuck. Because you say like you get a new Matthews flagship, right? And I have one, right? I've not a new one, but I have one. But you're kind of limited on a draw weight with the module that you have with the new bows, right? So it's 65. That's it. Like there's no you can play with the limbs a little bit, but I'd be real hesitant on the new ones, the new ones with the 8 limbs that they have to do that. So,
yeah,
but you're but with something like that, like the bear, where you can go from 10, like you said, 10 to 70 pounds, why not? Because then you can find out where you want to be. And if you want to jump up, you can. If not,
yeah,
you got a good bow right there.
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with them. I shot a bear bow for a very long time, very, very long time.
Hopefully it works out and we can do something with it and we'll find out. But that's the plan anyway, is to get back into that and yeah, hopefully start hunting with it again. That's the end goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what else is new with you? What else has been going on?
Oh, finally coming out of winter like we talked about. Turkey season's going now. Our season, the wife and I season starts in just a few days. We hunt the month of May, the late season here. Just it's a longer season. There's no that way we don't have to. It's not a draw or anything. All the rest of the season
Mm,
lotteries. So and they're
really?
short seasons. Yeah, they're a week long, something like that. And the season in May
Hmm.
starts I think the 6th is when it starts this year. I don't remember exactly, but it runs the full month, runs to the end of the month or into
Okay.
the first week of June. So yeah, and the weather's better. You don't have to deal with the snow and the cold as much, and
Yeah.
and again, you're turkey hunting and picking mushrooms. So, or honestly, in my case, we're turkey hunting, then we're walking around and we're refreshing scrapes, or we're adding more scrapes and doing all of that stuff in the meantime, while we're scouting turkeys.
Yeah, that was one of the big things we talked about last year. Like the first episode was the doing scrapes so early on in the season, like even during a turkey season.
Yeah,
So we kind of busted that myth of that common belief that only during the rut or the pre-rut should you be making mock scrapes. And you're like, no, we
yeah,
don't. We make them. We make them now.
yeah. We make them all the time. We make them year round. And as you know, I'm sure you pay attention to the internet as much as anybody. As you can see, you're seeing more and more people now say that they keep their mock scrapes open year round and they use them year round. Some of that is a compliment to the people that are actually doing it, and these other guys are just saying they're doing it because they talked to those people or they heard it. And some of
Hmm.
them actually are doing it. There's no question there. But
Right.
a lot of the chatter is just that. It's just chatter. So because this is a pretty relatively new thing for this year round thing, there are not a lot of people that honestly have the dedication to keep this stuff going year round like that. They don't have the time, most of it.
Right.
People have families, they have lives. So
Well, I would say of the stuff that you would do year round for a deer, the way that your system works, or your when you go out, like I don't think it really takes that much commitment during the off season, other than just going out there and setting up a couple sites, or maybe refreshing a couple sites if you've
right,
already have them up. Like there's not like, I don't have to go out there every 2 weeks like I do a feeder or whatever, like so other year round things, like I think it's one of the easier ones. So I think people might be missing out on some stuff if you
yeah,
ask me.
yeah, you're 100% right because when we get asked how often should I refresh this, I'm telling people every 8 weeks. Okay. Well,
Mhm.
if you do it every 8 weeks, well, just you can kind of do the math on that. You're going to do it at turkey season, which is a little bit ago to now. Okay, so
Mhm.
you're in the woods now. Fast forward eight weeks, you're into July. These guys are now we're gung ho about hanging our trail cameras because we got to catch that velvet now. Everybody wants to watch velvet. So guess what? Now you
Mhm.
can refresh your scrapes and your ropes again while you're there. Because if you're going to hang new cameras to catch specific travel corridors and do all of that, why wouldn't you just hit all your scrapes while you're there? You're already there. So there's your 2 months. You've gone your 2 months, and those deer are still hitting your scrapes. They're still hitting your licking branches and your ropes and your vines and
Yeah.
everything you've got. Now all you're going to do is jump that activity up because you've refreshed it. Draw some new deer into the equation because you've thrown a new deer into the equation again. Maybe some deer have traveled through that are starting to hang more, caught in that pattern that you and I, we've talked about this in depth, honestly, the pattern that gets created with this. And when I talk about the time invested, I guess this is something I'll touch on this now, and then we'll cover it a little deeper later on. The amount of time that gets invested in this isn't so much what you go and spend like in a season, like from now until October. That's not quite the time I'm talking about. I'm talking about long-term time invested and the results that you're going to get from that system then.
Mhm.
For my system to come to fruition fully, and I tell guys this up front when I go to their properties. Make no mistake, I'm not giving you any delusions that you're going to get instant gratification, because you're not. The deer are going to come to your scrapes and the ropes that you hang, that we hang together. Those locations are
Mhm.
going to be on fire right away. You're going to get activity, but the full pattern and the full system won't fully come to fruition for about 3 years. It takes a full 3 years, seasons, for this to cycle around and for these deer to become completely trapped in this pattern, to where the buffer zones that you and I have talked about becoming a real thing and a real visible thing to your eye as you walk by and you see it. Um, you see the reactions of the deer in the buffer zones outside your scrape areas. All of that stuff. That's the time that I talk about being willing to invest, um, and not expecting the Amazon effect that you talk about. That's
Right.
you've got that one, and it's 100% accurate. We all want it right now, and it is the Amazon effect. So
Yeah.
that's the part I'm trying to get people to realize too, is yes, I can 100% get deer to show up at a scrape immediately. We can do that too. But my thing is more of a system that's long term, for long term
Mhm.
results, to keep people happy for a long time, not just once.
Right. And I think that's why I appreciate you being honest about that, because most of the time, a lot of the marketing, as we said, it's that Amazon effect. They want to affect now, like they want it out now. They want it this now. Get it. Time is hot now. Where we promise you, like, look at what is it? Khmer deer has a 3 day harvest. Like it's not a long term thing. Like, hey, we promise you'll have deer here in 3 days. It's they want that instant gratification and not the long term. But everybody knows, and we've talked in depth about this already. But everybody knows that nothing of lasting good effort or of lasting good is done in a flash of a moment, right? It's
Right.
something that has to build over time. And that's why I appreciate about you and your system and how you promote things, is that yes, you are absolutely correct. I had deer on my mock scrape like the very first night. I think it was the first few hours after.
Yep.
I don't know if the ground even, I think the ground was still warm for me being there,
Yeah.
and they came in to check it out, right? So yeah, they can be there right then and there, but it's the long-term goal of patterning that. And just not only just and here's something I think that you and I should probably talk about too. And this is not necessarily mock scrape related. I think it's just marketing and deer, how do I put this? Just deer culture in general.
Yeah.
Is we're not talking just about bucks. We are talking about does as well,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because you and I know that if the does are going to be there, guess who else is going to be there, right?
Right. And
But
I've
what
said
is
that to you before. I'm more excited when I go out to a new place and hang a rope or a vine or whatever I'm doing. I'm way more excited to see a mature doe come in and be the very first deer to walk in and just absolutely smash her whole face on whatever I've got hanging there and
Mhm,
then walk away.
mhm.
I would much rather see that happen than to have 3 bucks nose to tail come in and hit that rope. I would much rather have that mature doe come in and be comfortable enough to come in there and rub her face all over that and mark that and then walk away, because now I know all the deer are going to be comfortable there.
Absolutely. And I bet, I want to go on a limb. I bet you that's probably like the number one negative thing you might hear is like, well, I'm not seeing any, I got a lot of does, but I'm not seeing any bucks on this.
Yeah, you're probably very close to right. That is probably the number one. Well, how come it's only does that I'm seeing
Mm-hmm.
on my spots? Well, because that's probably honestly all that's in that area right now. You may be in one of those places where you don't have any summer bucks or spring bucks. They're not there. They're over here right now on the neighbors. Well, if fall comes along, you get them in there and they get their nose full of that. If you've done the things that I've said you should do and follow along with the system, now that when those bucks come in the fall, they're going to get that nose full of scrape magic, and they're going to start hanging around because now they're going to get caught, like we talk about all the time, in that revolving door. And yeah, they'll disappear maybe right away and then they'll be back. But once they come back, they're caught. They're there. So that, I
It's
mean,
just
yeah, those, like I said, that's my favorite thing to see. Is the first thing is a big mature doe. Matriarch
right.
comes stuff her nose right in that rope.
And I think anybody who actually really deer hunts, like the resident matriarch doe. Now, granted, they don't herd. They're not a herd animal. They're a small family group, if at
Correct.
most, right? But you have the matriarch doe. Like if she's comfortable with it, she's been on that farm for years.
Her whole
A
life.
lot longer than most of the bucks that you're going to see, right? That's her area, and there might be just a buck that fringes that while this is her area, right? And just that she's okay with it should say something. But it's a shame though that I think that a lot of our culture is they put an emphasis on success because with something that has antlers on their head being at that site. And if they don't see the antlers on their head at that site, then it didn't work.
Or if it's not big enough antlers. That part of the deer hunting culture, as honestly, I think as far as a lot of the mainstream guys and the public in general, the giant antler thing has kind of started to fade a bit. Guys have grown weary of it has to be 150-inch 10-pointer. It's not where, you know what I mean? The guys have
Right.
grown, the regular guy, the
Mm-hmm.
regular everyday deer hunter has grown tired of inches of antler.
Yeah.
It's old news now. And yes, there are oodles of trophy guys still, that
Mm-hmm.
200 inches is still the benchmark. And look, that's great. I would love to shoot a 200-inch buck. Let's make no mistake about that.
Me too.
Is it realistically going to happen for me here where I live and hunt? Probably not. Could I build a place here to grow a deer like that? Maybe, if I could afford the amount of property here that it would take to do that. And that's not likely. So, and that's
Well,
fine. I can travel, you know what I mean? I'm lucky enough and
mhm.
blessed enough to be able to travel to some places where the possibility of 200 is real. Is it likely? No, but it's real. It's tangible there. So I've honestly relished myself to the fact that, look, man, this whole thing from the beginning has been for the average guy,
Right.
because I am really just an average guy that's doing an average thing a little different way than everybody else. That's all there is to this. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
doing anything that any of these other mock scrape guys have ever not done before me. I'm just doing it in a whole different way and in my own way and getting results like they've never seen. And honestly, in my opinion, I'm getting results like nobody's ever seen. So,
Well, sometimes it took the first person to say that. Hey, I can't say it was Christopher Columbus, but let's say it took Christopher Columbus saying, "Hey, the world's round," for there to be a change in what we thought, right, and
right.
how we handle things. You need an innovator, you need a disruptor to come out and have something that goes against the grain, that goes against what most people believe, and then have the science to prove, or let's just say, or have the facts to prove it.
Yeah.
And I said
Look,
this in a couple.
if you're going to come into the room and make statements and make claims, you better have your receipts.
You better.
If you're going to write checks, you better have receipts.
You better. It's
And
unfortunate though. It's unfortunate though the day too many people though will just listen to something and then just spit it back out as if that's fact and not actually know it to be fact or actually have the facts actually to back it up.
right. And then there's I call that, and I've called that for a long time. I call that the regurgitation factor.
Mm-hmm.
Guys that if they hear the same thing enough times, even if it's in a little different way, a different spin, then they spit it back out as gospel.
Right.
And most of the time, that isn't the facts. It's been diluted and changed and respoken and just
Mhm.
isn't solid facts anymore. So
And
people,
it gets really,
we all have to be careful with the
yeah.
information
It
that
get
we take and use.
right. And it gets really bad with social media too, because people can create their own social like echo chamber to
Yeah,
where it's only people around them that believes in what they believe in is surrounding them. So all they hear is just that, and
yeah,
they have a hard time getting away from that.
yeah. And
So
we talked a little bit about off the air. Talked a little bit about the negative side of this. You
yeah.
can't ever make everybody happy 100% of the
Nope.
time. You're always going to have somebody tell you that you're wrong or you're
Hmm.
bad. You're not. You don't know what you're talking. That kind of thing. A negative,
Hmm.
any kind of negative white noise in the background, making noise at you that's negative. That do they drain on you after a while? I welcome that kind of thing because now I know that I'm getting to everybody, not just that echo chamber. I don't want to surround myself with only people that will pat me on the back and tell me how wonderful I am.
Right.
Because look, that's not how life is. That's not reality.
No.
That's not the real world. I'm a Gen Xer and I can take it. I'm pretty tough. And I also know that I'm not the smartest guy in the room, you know. I know there's guys out there that can do what I'm doing sorta, but I also know that I'm doing something that other people
Mhm.
aren't. And that's what I want people to see and hear and understand. Just listen. Don't be don't be quick to say, oh, you're wrong. He's wrong. Don't listen to him. He's foolish. Just listen. Just listen for a minute.
Well, I think they're going to have a lot to listen to, not only just this episode, but also the subsequent episodes that come out, because this is definitely going to be a multi-part series that you and I are going to be producing together. And I appreciate you taking the time and the willingness to jump on here with us again. And hopefully, I'm not saying hopefully, I'm saying we're going to create the same type of magic we created before.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I already got people now that are talking to me, and I don't know if I want to name drop another podcast, but let's do it. Like you're getting out there now. Like your name, your ideology, your system, your products, your brand is getting out there, because it just recently was brought up on the working class bow hunter,
Yeah,
and
I got a little snippet from them on that. One of the guys that was on there on that episode sent me the clip of that actually. So I mean, it's to get talked about there. I mean, it's a big deal. They're a big deal. So
they are.
it makes us feel good to know that we're being noticed and for the right
Well,
things.
they're successful because they have the same mentality that you have, and people like you have. Is that even though you've got the naysayers, like that's fuel to your fire to make you go out and be better, right?
Right.
And you're like, I'll prove you wrong. Like this is what I have, and I will work twice as hard to prove you wrong. That yes, this does work, or yes, I will be successful.
Yep.
And that's the successful mindset, because there are going to be people that don't agree with you. There are going to be people that try to bring you down or try to explain on why you were wrong. Like look anywhere on the internet today, look at the Ranch Fairy versus almost every other bow hunting channel that exists,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
He's presenting his evidence. I'm not saying he's 100% right, I'm not saying they're 100% right, I'm just saying
And,
he's presenting their evidence, that is contrary to what they say, and then now they're doing everything in their power to dispel what he's saying, right?
yep.
And trust me, that is a very touchy subject, because I've done episodes myself on my YouTube channel to show what he's talking about, and I'm telling you what, there's a lot of polarizing beliefs out there. Even though you can see the data in front of you, everyone has a reason as to why. Well, this is why this is the way it is. You're not using the right medium. You're not this. You're not that. You're just coming up with whatever excuse you can come up with to try to save the belief system that you have, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to track through, but hey, you know what? I appreciate you taking the time to comment, because that's more publicity for me. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Engagement gets me stuff. So thanks. Appreciate that.
I appreciate that so much. So please keep it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think let's dive into this. Let's start down this rabbit hole here.
Sure.
Because you and I, we've talked in, our last 3-part series, they were pretty lengthy, and I'm okay with that. This is the whole idea behind podcasts, long form conversation, right?
Yeah.
But we talked, and I think we come to agreement that we are, or at least I think we both think this would be a good idea to just kind of keep these about an hour long a piece, maybe a little bit longer, maybe not, somewhere in that hour time frame, and just break down in segments. So let's start diving in on this. And One of the sociologists that are out there today that I follow his work is Simon Sinek, and he has a big thing about start with why, right? And a lot of people focus on other things and they don't understand why they're doing what they do. And he's got a big talk, and I'm not going to go into it because I might get copyright strike. But if you want to listen to it, look up Simon Sinek. He has a good talk as to why. And this is in your case too, why, how many scrape, mock scrape companies are there, right? There's a lot. Like, you've got the big industry out there, the like the golden esters with the drippers, or the magic, or active scrape, I think, is their number one thing.
Yeah.
For wildlife research. You've got mom and pop shops everywhere. You've got the Smoky Deer Lures, that I think from West Virginia or that area that way,
Yeah.
from a local guy here. So there's a lot that exists out there. And his premise is like, so what if there are so many people doing the same thing? Why is this one like the head of the thing, right? Why is this one always the forerunner of it? And he's like, it's not because of the product, because each one of these companies are capable of making the same product. It's their why. It's why they do things. It's the why they exist. That's what that's what is drives behavior, is their why, right? So I want to start there. I want to start with why. Why mock scrapes? Why any of it? Why should we be doing this? What do you think? Good
Oh,
starting point?
yeah, sounds great. We can start there and kick this off there. Why would somebody want to use a mock scrape? We can start with that if you want. So, in my opinion, the reason why you want to use a mock scrape is that mock scrape now becomes the focal point for that deer to stop for you to shoot that deer. That is why right there. That, in a nutshell, that's the end goal, is
Mm-hmm.
that deer. You're killing that deer. Most guys want to hunt a mock scrape for that very reason, to kill a deer. That's why. That's not why I think they're the most important. That's not my why. My why
Right.
is because the scrapes teach us to be better deer hunters overall. You can use a series of mock scrapes to learn deer behavior way faster than you can use anything else to learn deer behavior, because they create pecking orders. Hierarchy gets created at these scrapes, especially the communal scrape. That's where all the behavior is learned. That's where social etiquette is learned within the deer herd. Who's in charge, who's not in charge? Why would you not want that kind of an education naturally for very little investment financially? So for the deer hunter, that's the basic answer of why, is to kill the deer. And for me, the basic answer is to get the education from the deer.
So explain, why would that be better, to get the education from the deer versus just that short term shoot the deer?
Because like we just talked about, the short term make the scrape shoot the deer is the Amazon effect. That's instant gratification for that guy. And now he's going to expect that to happen every single time he uses that product. He's going to want short term instant success. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's great for the guy that's selling the product until it doesn't work like that the second time around. You're
There
going
it
to get
is.
that
Mhm.
first time instant gratification. That's great. Congratulations. Everybody's got your picture now of this deer with the product that you used to kill it, the bottle of scrape magic and the just a rope laying there next to the deer. Awesome. I'm so excited for you. And then next year it doesn't happen again. And guess what? Now you're bad mouthing me, telling me, well, it worked once. Well, you used one rope and hung it in one place, and that's all you did. That,
Right.
you got lucky the first time, basically. So that leads us to, why do I need to have more than one location? Because you can't keep deer on a pattern with just one location. That's not a pattern. That's a visit. That's just a visit.
Mm.
Multiple locations create and build patterns. So you're going to want multiple locations to build patterns, to build long-term success instead of instant gratification. Now you're going to long-term patterns build long-term success, because now you're going to get the same instant gratification every year through long-term success. If that makes
Right.
any sense at all. The instant
It does.
gratification becomes permanent.
Right. I tracking what you're saying there, because like you said, like that, if I go out one deer and hang this up one year and a buck happens to show up to it, that was just happenstance. Like
Yeah.
that was coincidence. That was luck. Right. And you hit the nail on the head when you said, when you go out there next year and do the same thing, all of a sudden nothing shows up. Right. So, but when you go out there and you create this system, right, you go out there, you create this pattern. You've learned the behavior of the deer, at least the deer on your farm. Now, deer
Yes.
generally are going to react about the same way. They each have their own kind of behavior, and each kind of like real region, they might have their own little nuances, right?
Right.
But for generally speaking, deer are deer, right?
Yeah.
People are people, deer are deer. We're going to do a lot of similar things. But what you're saying though is that you're building this pattern, right? So that you know that it doesn't matter what buck it is or what deer it is. You have an idea when the next one, because you shoot that one deer, you know, you had that one rope and you were lucky and you got that one deer. That might have been the only deer that was actually going to be in that area at that one time. You were lucky, right? The right circumstance or the right the right particular time happened right then and
May
there.
have been the
That's it.
may have been the single only deer committed to that location, to that rope or that vine or whatever you have there. The scrape magic, and we'll just use that because it's on a limb, a branch, it's on something there. That
Mm-hmm.
may be the only deer committed to that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you've got multiple locations where the deer are traveling around and now you catch them in multiple locations and pull them there,
Mm-hmm.
now you've got multiple deer there and not just that one buck, you know?
Right.
And that's the other part of that why mock scrapes is because you can use mock scrapes to target one particular deer, one particular bachelor group. You can target those deer and break that apart systematically until you're targeting one individual buck in one set of scrapes in one area. Maybe,
Right.
maybe one or two of the other bucks in that same bachelor group on that same property you've got tangled up over here in another set of scrapes fighting with each other. This guy's a little older. He's not having it. He's going to stay over here, hang out
Right.
with his does. Well, now what have you done? You've created two separate patterns. So you've got this guy here hanging out getting the girls, these guys over here kicking each other's butts, not getting any girls. And then over here, you've got some other girls hanging out over here together, watching these fools do their thing. Come
Right.
over, they hit that rope, they've come to the rope, they've come to the scrape. The girl over here gets done with big boy who doesn't have to fight anymore. And guess what? One of those does goes right over to him and they hook up,
Mm-hmm.
do their thing. He never has to get in a fight because we've created a pattern of keep him safe and keep him breeding like he's wanting to do anyway. Those big
Right.
old bucks don't want to fight the old bucks. They don't like to fight. They want to breed.
Right.
You know? Let the young guys fight. You don't see the 60-year-old guys in the bar fighting. You see the 20 and the 30-year-olds throwing hands.
I love that analogy. I use that all the time trying to explain the whitetail rat to people, or at least my explanation of it. And you're absolutely right, right? Because the older bucks, you'll every now and again, listen, you'll have that salty old 60-year-old man that wants to get in a fist fight with everybody he sees. He gets a little bit of liquid courage and he's ready to roll, right? I get it, right?
Yep.
That's not
That's not
most
generally
cases.
what happens.
But that older buck, the one you're after, right? The mature buck, he's got the best antlers he's going to have. He's just everything that I guess we're dreaming of, right? He's not that active in chasing after things, right? He has his core area. He knows he's been around long enough. He knows where things are going to happen. And the does also know him as well, right? He knows where to be. He knows the areas to check, and he's not going to be a fighter. You know, number one, in today's world, he's not usually a fighter because the fighters are usually killed within 2, 3, 4 years, right? The most aggressive bucks that will come to a fight usually get killed off pretty fast, right? Not all of them, but a good bit of them,
Or hit
or
by
at
a
least
car, or hit by a
a
car
car.
because they're chasing a doe. Um,
Yeah.
and like
So
you just said, not saying that older buck's not going to do all those other things that those younger bucks are, but as a rule, I do believe that they don't do it near as much.
no, they
They
don't.
lay up and they let those does come to them, the breeder does.
Mm-hmm. They're not dumb.
Or they lay downwind of those scrapes and they scent check those scrapes for the hot does.
Mm-hmm.
I
They're
know
not dumb at all.
we have cameras. We know that happens. So, and so yeah, we're still on the why. Let's see, what's the next why we can do? Why more than one location is to build patterns. We talked about that a little bit. And when I talk about multiple locations, you and I have talked a lot of times about this. It's hundreds. It's not just 10 or 15. It's hundreds and hundreds of them,
Right.
depending on the property. And we'll get into that more obviously later on because we got some talking to do.
Absolutely.
The why are guys afraid of mock scrapes, or why, maybe not afraid, afraid's the wrong word. Why are guys hesitant? We'll go there. So we'll go from the exact opposite. Guys that are gung-ho to guys that are standoffish and hesitant and they don't really work. They won't down talk it and say it's bad, but they're like, man, they just don't work. I don't ever see any results. None of my buddies ever have any luck.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to waste my money. Man, oh man, them are my favorite kind of guys to get to talk to because usually they are open-minded. They'll hear you. They'll listen.
Mm-hmm. Hello, everyone. This is Sean Smith of the Chasing Your Experience podcast. We interrupt this episode to let you in on some exciting news. If you're looking to upgrade your mock scrape game this year, Then head over to scrapedoctor.com and fill your carts full of scrape magic, maybe a poison ivy or two, just a rope squared, or even just a rope. And then enter the code CountryFried10. That's Country Fried, spelled with a K, the number 10, and save yourself a little bit of money. And now, back to the pod.
Because they've been unsuccessful enough times. Okay, I'll give it one more try. All right, I'll try one more thing or whatever the case may be, and that's where when I run into guys like you at shows or a guy like that that's kind of downtrodden about it and just, I'm so tired of hearing about mock scrapes, it doesn't work. And then he looks at your stuff and it's like, how can I mean, he looks at the price point you've got and he's like, well, how can I afford not to? So then he does. And then he's like, oh my, I should have done this before, because now he's got something that actually is giving him the results that he wants, that he's expecting. It isn't even so much that these guys want results, they expect them. You're telling them, I'm telling these guys, use my stuff, you will get results. So why are they hesitant? That mostly it's money. Truthfully, it's money and lack of results by other people. It isn't necessarily that guy. Sean didn't necessarily have bad results, but Sean's buddy might have, and he told Sean. So Sean's like, nah, I'm good. I'm walking right on by that guy at the show. I'm not buying his stuff. I'm not even going to talk to the guy. Well, so those are the guys that I try to get to at least have the conversation with, so they can see my why they should.
I think we covered one of the whys too, is the time. They think it's going to be a big time drain, that they have to spend all this time
the
in the woods to keep up
thing,
with them.
Right. That's why they shy away from them, is they think that they got to go refresh these things every 2 weeks or whatever. All these other things tell you to refresh it. And like I've said before, every couple months you can refresh. But if you're using cell cameras, your cameras will tell you. Your cameras in the deer will tell you when it's time to do maybe go out and give it a little squirt, activity will slow down a little bit. The deer will get used to that deer and it's not there anymore. You know what I mean? That deer's not coming around, so I'm going to stop showing up so often. I never catch that deer here, so I'm going to start showing up every other day now. You go out and give it a refresh, bang, that deer showed back up, and now all them deer are there every single day checking, waiting for that deer to show back up. So,
and you also, when we talked before, you also brought up that another thing is that maybe there's nothing left for them to say right now because they've said everything they wanted to on that rope, and nobody else has been there to add any more to the conversation. And because all they smell is just them now. Like, well, we're the only ones that's been here, so that I know everything I need to know from that rope right now.
Yeah.
Or whatever your mock scrape is, because I want to touch on that again here coming up, but let's finish on that point there.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right about that, because what you'll get then is you'll see in your videos on your trail cameras is you'll see the deer, bucks or does, whichever, they'll walk by within 6 or 7 feet of that, whatever it is hanging there, that licking branch or whatever it is. And you'll see them on the camera turn their head that way, hold their head a sec, and then turn it back and walk on. Well, all they've done is scent checked it. And like you just said, nobody new has been there. So we're going to just go right ahead and move on our way. There's no need to go back over there. I can smell myself on that rope. So there's no reason to go over there. So
no sense of waste energy to go over there, right?
True that.
So, but let's go back to one of the other whys that people would shy away from, and that was the money part of this. And I think this is something that, I think you differ from a lot of other of the marketers out there, because yes, you do have a product line that you would want to sell though, right? And you just said that, on some properties, we're talking like 100 of different sites, right? But here's the thing that you differ, where I think a lot of people don't, and because they're going to tell you that you need to buy this product to hang from the tree. That's what you need to use, right? You need this product to hang from the tree. And you talk about hundreds of sites. Let's hypothetically say, let's think, $20 a pop for whatever we're going to hang in the tree. It's $2,000 right out the gate. Where you differ is you're like, yeah, we have the ropes for you, but when I'm making this large exorbitant amount of scrapes, what are you doing?
Well, and that's just it. It does scare people off. You're right, because now they're immediately on that. You're making how many scrapes? Now they're immediately adding the dollars up. And that's why I immediately stop everybody and say, wait. Okay, you might hang 2 ropes on this whole property, and the rest of this is going to be, I'm going to walk from my scrape site. I'm creating exits and entrances to my locations. Okay. we're going to set up, let's say we're going to set up a spot in hopes that it turns into a communal scrape. We're going to set up a hot spot, just a peach of a spot that we found that we know will probably become the hub. Okay. So we hang a poison ivy there. We'll go with that because it's
Mhm.
substantial and it's heavy and it's a good vine. It's, so we'll put that there. Okay. So we go from that poison ivy, we spray it down good with our scrape magic, and then we walk away from that and we go about 30 yards and we hold that scrape magic down about our waist and we just spray it in the foliage on the bushes, on the leaves as we walk by. We don't stop, just 3, 4 mists psh, 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 as we walk by. Walk another 30, 40 yards, same thing. So all you're doing is creating licking branches as you walk, leading those deer either to it or away from it. And you do that on both
Mhm.
either side of that poison ivy, which you want to be the hub. So now you're leading deer in and out both directions like this, okay? So they're coming back and forth. Now they're going to just start coming in and out like that. And you've got a revolving door. Well, that's how you create a hub. And that's how you can create, if you will, a communal scrape. Can't just do it in any location. Not every scrape will turn. You can't create that out of just any scrape. It has to be the right spot. But that's the end goal for me, is to create at least one of those good ones like that on every property, because then you branch off of that and create full travel patterns within the scrapes. That's where you end up with hundreds and hundreds. And when I say scrapes, as I've said to you before, and you know that I don't mean literal scrapes on the ground, I mean licking branches. The term mock scrape is a little off in my opinion. It isn't a mock scrape at all. It's just a mock licking branch. I don't create a lot of scrapes on the ground. Most of my stuff's in the licking branch because that's what's important. That's where everything happens, is right there. I've told you that before. The only time that scrape's important is for about 10 days out of the year, 14 days, and that's it. It's over from there. It doesn't really matter from there. If you look at them, the bulk of them now, if you go out in the woods right now and look at them, they've got grass growing up in them. You might find a track in one or two of the ones that aren't community scrapes, but not likely, because those scrapes are just idle right now. Until I go around my places and hit all those licking branches again, not much going to happen.
I think that's another why people might not be hesitant, or they don't have the results that they're expecting, because a lot of other product lines focus on the ground, what you put in the ground, right? You spray the ground, right?
Yeah,
I'll tell you this, like I watched a couple bucks, decent bucks, like they're, I don't like using the term up and comer because I don't want to make it sound like I'm like some big trophy hunter. They weren't to the point yet that my heart fluttered when I seen them, right? I said, dude, those are nice bucks and they're going to be really nice. But just right now, they're just not right. They just I don't have the flutter with them. I watched them two work a tree, a licking branch, never touch the ground once. Never touch the ground once. They sit there, they worked on that branch, and then they walked off.
yeah,
Not once did I see them paw the ground.
yeah. And
Not once.
even in October and November, you'll have deer or bucks work a licking branch, work that whole thing, and never paw at the ground. He might even pee in the scrape, but won't dig and won't paw
Yeah.
in the scrape and dig in the scrape. He just won't do it. I truly am. I go, I don't know why. Because it's not necessary. First off, it's about the urine and the moisture hitting the scrape and the pheromones from those glands is what
Hmm.
it's about. It's not, they dig at the ground to tear that up to release the moisture and give that urine somewhere to go and wet the ground. That's why you see these guys say, I just pour water in my scrapes. They'll take a gallon of water and just dump a straight gallon of water in a scrape. All that does is reactivate all that ammonia that's down in the dirt. It does.
Hmm.
And water's free.
Yeah.
You can carry an empty milk jug into the woods with you, hit the creek or the water hole on the way by, and just pour it right in your scrape. So, I mean, there's some science to that one. You know what I mean? I don't personally
Right.
do it, but the guys that do it have results. So, and I know several guys that do it a lot. So,
Well, then you got Jeff Sturgis who tells you just pee in the thing anyways, because
well,
like you said,
hi, Jeff. Jeff Sturgis tells
uh,
people a lot of things. Yeah, he does.
yeah, I've seen that too. I heard that too. Just pee in it because it's going to break down into ammonia anyway. So
Yes, you can't discredit that because it's true. I mean, you know what I mean? But like we've said, there's another why. Why focus on something that's not going to get you anything? Why focus on that scrape on the ground when all the results are going to come from up here in that licking branch, guaranteed. That's where all the communication happens, is up there. So
Mhm.
anybody that's using the scrapes on the, I mean, using those scrapes on the ground for communication, those deer are just talking out their ass. Literally, they have to be. So
Well, I know most of the time when I see activity, especially when I'm watching it. Now, here recently, I actually really started paying attention to it because when you said it was more about the licking branch, I really started paying more attention to this now. Like, yeah, I did see some bucks paw up the ground. I did see some. I'm not saying not all of them,
yeah,
but
yeah,
there were some that did, right? Because I think that's the classic sign that most people think when they see a scrape or they is that right there is the buck pawing up the ground, right?
yeah,
But when I had a so I actually I have a more fresher example than I gave earlier. I literally made two scrapes, right? Well, it was supposed to be one, but there was two grapevines that were hanging there, and I ended up cutting. So I made those, and I like, well, there's a good tree for me to climb. So I was in my saddle, so I made those scrapes, sprayed them down a little bit of scrape magic, and then I climbed a tree. This family group of does came down, I don't know, probably within 30 minutes of me actually being settled in the tree and hit that spot. They came down, checked it out, and so, but they didn't paw the ground. They didn't sniff the ground. They were sitting there sniffing that grapevine, and they're rubbing up on that grapevine. They want nothing to do with the ground that I kicked up.
yeah, yeah.
They wanted everything to do with that grapevine.
I got a, I have a doe out my window in a licking branch right now, right outside my window.
I
It's
wonder what you were looking at. It's like something's got his.
just walked up and started rubbing on it.
So, and that's why I see a lot too, is the does are rubbing up on it, and it makes sense that they're getting that type of communication there, and that's the main communication hub. Yeah, eventually you're right. They're going to start peeing in it, and I think the general idea that I hear that gets floated around is that you have does that will pee in the scrapes, and that will get the buck's attention. Because that's what he's doing. Like he's making those scrapes as like a calling card for himself,
Yep,
leading into those areas, right, leading back to him.
two
And
more,
so they'll leave there. What's that?
two more deer just walked up.
Uh-oh. And so they'll come up and yeah, they did. There is activity on the ground, but that's during a certain time of year, right? And
Yep,
that's, hey, big boy, we're here.
yep,
Or he's saying, hey, ladies, I'm available whenever you're ready.
yep,
So,
yep. And I honestly, sometimes I wonder when I see a doe come into a scrape and squat and walk away. Sometimes, and it's earlier in the year. Maybe it's a week before Halloween, even, right? You're
mhm,
far forward, back away from the rut. I wonder sometimes if those does, especially the mature does, don't go and do that, and those bucks smell that, and they know then that, hey, look, I'm
mhm.
6 days from coming into estrus. Well, then bang, that buck shows up in about 4 or 5 days, and he's hanging around, and he's been vacant. You know what I mean? He's disappeared for days or whatever. So that could be part of that October lull we talked about that isn't the
Right.
lull. Mm-hmm.
It's just they know.
Right. And sometimes I wonder that because you don't see a lot of that kind of action until about that time, about a week before Halloween. You'll start to see the does that walk into a scrape squat market and then just move on.
Mhm.
Um, so that's how we got that label, the picture on the estrus label. That does in
Was
one
that
of our,
right there?
yeah,
Yeah.
she's in one of our scrapes. So
That was a good picture too. They worked out pretty good.
good timing.
Yeah. Well, hey, it is what it is. And no better marketing than the one you collect yourselves. Don't have to pay anybody for it.
Right.
So let's talk about why would some guys or some hunters, and it's not just focused on just guys, like obviously the females are out there as well. There's some ladies out there, there's some killers. Let's talk about why certain individuals are more successful with their scrapes versus others. What do you think?
Improper placement, improper height of things they use, even
Hmm.
natural items like branches and grapevines and things. A lot of that is improper height. Everybody wants everything way too high. You and I have talked about that at length.
Yeah, we have.
I tried. That's the one thing that I feel like I'm finally starting to get through to people, to bring that stuff down, bring it
Hmm.
lower to where the deer can actually reach it. I want those smaller does and fawns to be able to reach this stuff too. You want those deer working it. You want all the deer to be able to interact with it. If it's up here and they're walking under it, yeah, you're going to get that one adult deer that can smell it, and they're going to go like this and sniff it a little bit and then move on because it's a pain to get to. Just, it's 6 inches, people. Drop it 6 inches or a foot. I know they probably think it's wrong and it's not going to work and it won't be this, but I promise you, if you put it there, you're going to get the surprise of your life. You're going to get more interaction than you've ever had in a mock scrape because they can reach it and they can use it. So that's why they don't work most of the time, is improper location, improper hanging height of whatever they're using, or the upper branches are too high that they're putting their scent in,
Mhm.
or bad product. Honestly, the product that they're using isn't the correct product, or it's no good. It just doesn't work. Um, because we got to be honest, there are things on the market that just do not work.
Right.
Not every product works for every guy, every person in every situation either, including my own. I mean, I'm well aware of this, that it could go
Right.
somewhere and somebody say it just doesn't work. I've I've had some people say that the deer just ignore it. And again, my immediate reaction is, well, what did you do wrong? Because the other 500 people had a different reaction than that. So that makes me want to know what I did wrong. Why? There's my why.
Mhm.
Why didn't it work? But usually it falls back to operator error. So that's why they don't work for most guys.
What else do you think we should cover about the why? What are some deeper thoughts on why do you think people should know? Because I think we covered pretty good that it's getting away from just
Yeah, it's
that one moment, and we're talking about the deeper why of creating that pattern.
yep.
But
And
is there anything?
the deeper part of that, even if you want to go to that, you can why you would want to be good at this, honestly, why you want to good at getting good results with mock scrapes truly is then as you get to that point where you're like I told you, you're into that third year, you're finally got that your stuff to cut your pattern and your system to come to fruition. It's playing out like you want. Now you've had that success and now you're going to say, what can I do to take this to the next level? What's the next level of this? Well, the next level is why can't I pick that buck right there? And now we're going to target him. Why not? That's the why. Why not
Mhm.
that right there? Okay. Now I've got all the deer. I've convinced all these deer to do all these things that I want them to do when I want them to do it. Now I want that buck right there and that buck right there to start doing the things I want them to do, in particular, outside of what you've created with the rest of the deer. So now you go into that part of it and take that, and that's the next level why right there is now you're targeting specific deer, just like you would any other way that you
Mhm.
target these bucks to kill them. But now you're putting something that's super instinctual to them, which is seriously in my mind playing a mind game with them. You've mind warped them. I mean, I'm trying to keep this as PG as I can for you.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
you get in their head this way with these scrapes, and it's something that they absolutely have to do. They can't not do it, and that's where we pride ourselves in. We can force those deer to do what we want them to do when we want them to do it, not when they want. I get them on their feet and I keep them on their feet for guys like you and your buddies so that you're getting the same experience that I know I'm going to get. I know what's going to happen when I go in the woods, but I
Mhm.
want you guys to have that too. Whether you get all the flutter or not, that buck still came to your scrape, right? And you go,
Absolutely.
and then not only that, but now you can say, I got him. Because guess what? He's going to come back there next year too.
Mhm.
Your neighbor doesn't kill him and he doesn't get run over by a car and EHD doesn't get him and the other 8 million things that can kill a whitetail don't happen to him, he'll be back next year on that same spot because he can't help himself.
And I want to touch on one more why I think, and it's one a why we've talked about already, but it's the why the multiple locations. And this is something that I think we've talked before on because I think a lot of people when you create one spot, right? Let's just take luck out of it. Like you create this one spot, and that's going to be your primary. That's your destination spot that you're going to hunt.
Yeah.
How many times are you going to hunt that? How many times are you going to be in there getting your scent and you're going to be making a disturbance in that? What are you doing in there that's creating an issue, creating something that is actually going to be detrimental to your success?
So
When you create these, and just let me finish up real quick, but when you make these multiple ones, though, instead of when you get a pattern down, instead of hunting like the exact scrape itself, you're hunting a travel corridor this deer is traveling on because he's leaving from one of your scrapes to your next one. And you can hit him in that in between spot instead of being there at a destination because that destination can also be home for a lot of other eyes to catch you. But you could be in that travel spot, that ambush that he's not expecting something to be at. Or her, if you're just focusing on a does too, because this pattern is not just about bucks. Yeah, we focus on bucks, the commercialization of the bucks. I understand that. Like everything gets sold off the antlers of the male species of whatever ungulate we're chasing after, right?
yeah,
I mean, look at my shirt. It's got a bull elk on it, right?
my shirt.
Your logo, it's a buck, right?
Yeah,
If you look at my logo, it's a buck. I understand it's the commercialization of that, and that's what people are after. But don't forget, it's more than just that. But that's another reason why I think we should have multiple sites too,
yeah,
because you're building that pattern. And it also gives you a few options to actually not just get stuck on one spot and burn that place out, but also give you an opportunity for an actual good ambush.
Yeah.
Just my thoughts on that.
Yeah. And I 100% agree with that because like I've said to you before, I very rarely hunt over that scrape. I'm 40, 50 yards away from it,
Hmm.
one way or the other, on an exit or an entrance corridor. I hunt the entrance and the exit because now those deer are focused on moving scrape to scrape to scrape to get to that hub, to get to that main location, which is the hub, the destination scrape. That's the communal scrape. You've taken all the luck out, like you said. You know they're going there because you made them go there, right? So you're going to hunt one or the other. And in your mind, you have to decide which one it is because the deer are going to use them for both. It's either entrance, exit. You know what I mean? This is your entrance trail. They come this way and they exit that way, or vice versa. You have to decide which way you're going to hunt those, what winds you're going to hunt them on. Because again, you don't want to hunt you don't want to hunt and get blown out because you're getting winded in the scrape, in your main scrape. You know what I'm saying? You got deer coming from here to the scrape, but you're hunting this side, the wrong side, and now your wind is coming into it. You have to still hunt the wind and hunt smart. You can't just, oh, I got these deer all coming to this pattern and they react like this when I walk by and all of this. That's fine. But once you climb
Right.
a stand and start to hunt those deer, they behave differently. We all know this. It's October is not July, and the deer know this. So I very rarely will hunt directly over a main scrape like that unless I've got just irrefutable at 5:02 for 10 days in a row. This buck has stepped out on that scrape and he's only there long enough to shoot him and I can't find him coming from any other direction. That's the only way
Hmm.
I'm probably going to sit right on top of that because like you said, you've got all these other deer milling around and coming in and out and you're going to get caught. So
Hmm.
you have to be super careful with that, with hunting right on top of those locations because of the amount of eyeballs that are on you and the noses. It's not just the
Hmm.
eyes, it's all those noses that go with those eyeballs. So I try hard not to hunt directly over the top of them. And most of the time, probably 90% of the time, I can't even see it. You know, I can't see that scrape at all. I don't need to because
Right.
I know where it is and I know where the deer are going to come from. I've created the pattern. I know what they're going to do. So, and that's what we try to teach people to do on their own place. And without actually going there to set up and help someone do it, it's hard to explain it and get someone to do it exactly that way. But we're trying. We're gaining.
You are gaining traction, and that's undeniable. We talked a little bit about that already, so and I'm happy for you that that's the word's starting to get out there for you. And a quick sidebar: a buddy of mine who apparently has not listened to this podcast, my podcast with you yet. He mentioned I'm on to listen to that podcast that you did with him because I just heard his that scrape doctor show up on that the
Yeah.
working class bow hunter. And he's like, and he started diving into it. And he's like, hey, I just listened to that one you did in November. You know what? I'm really interested in this now. I'm gonna get a hold of me. I'll get a hold of you later. Tell me what I need to get, and if you want to come walk with me and show me kind of some of the things. So it's getting out there, and you're creating. Because he told me in his message to me, he's like, I was like 98% done with scents. Like I was done with them. Like I don't want to do them anymore. And then I heard this, and then the same story that you guys talked about in November was the one that was brought up in that podcast with the guys at Working Class Bow Hunter was the same story, or at least a version of that story. And he's like, I'm interested. So now he's diving into the rest of the podcast, and he's bought on this. So congratulations to you, and you're getting out there, and you're starting to make a difference, right? The reason you're in for this is starting to make a difference, you know
Yeah.
and I hope it continues to grow and stuff. And I'm actually really happy to be a part of it as we move forward with the other episodes that we know are going to come up. But
Yeah. Yeah.
we've hit our hour mark, and I think we've covered a good bit about on the why. Is there anything else you want to touch on this one before we close this one out?
Yeah, other than I just want, like I said before, I just really want guys to start opening their minds to doing this, not necessarily in an entirely different way, but in a very different way for way better results. I can't preach it enough that been doing it wrong for 40 years, and it's enough. We need to start doing this. If guys really want to have success with mock scrapes and kill deer in these scrapes, then they need to stop doing it the old way. That it just isn't working anymore. The deer have grown tired of the old ways, so it's time to step out of the box and do something different.
Well, I think it's actually adding like an actual true deer behavior to what we're doing versus what we've been told to do. Like somebody said, "Hey, I did this on the ground once and it worked. You should try it." Right. And
Yeah,
then that's how a product gets sold. Right now, you're selling a system that is more than just a one-time deal,
yeah,
and it's getting there, and the word's getting out there. And if you knew my buddy who was I was talking to, if you were able to convert him to get his interest into it, then you're onto something, because he's one of the ones that, I don't want to say he's a laggard when it comes to things,
yeah,
but he definitely wasn't part of the early majority. Like I would say he would be the tail end of the late majority, because he already had an experience with it. Like he had said, like, and he's like 98%. I'm like, I was out of sense, like
yeah,
98%, not going to
yeah.
do it, never going to do it again. And now this has sparked his interest, and he's ready to dive into it again, because it's the value that you give to that particular mode, or that particular tool of bow hunting or deer hunting in general, I should say. And it's not just bow hunting, but
No, it's not. But
so
I mean, and I didn't think so in the beginning, but I mean, I guess we kind of really do gravitate towards the bow hunter, honestly, in the mock scrape world, because most rifle hunters, are not. They're long range. You know what? Does that make sense?
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of rifle hunters do see deer, bucks work scrapes,
Mhm.
do, but it's at long range. It's at hundreds of yards
Mhm.
on the far end of an
Yeah,
alfalfa field. You know what I mean?
long range long range field edges, absolutely.
And that in early season, you're not having
Hmm.
the guys that hunt up here that are hunting late November are not having bucks come to field edges. They won't come near a field edge. So they've been shot
No,
at 500 times. So I
right.
mean, I guess we do really gravitate towards the bow hunter end of this. But definitely don't discriminate against any kind of deer.
No.
And
Well, statistically speaking, archery has overtaken firearms in Ohio, and I can't speak for every other state, but I know it has overtaken firearms as the number one means of deer harvest in Ohio. And crossbows is number one, so it actually has overtaken your longbow. So in Ohio, we distinguish between longbow, so that includes recurves, compounds, basically anything that is a longbow goes into that, right? It's not just the traditional longbow; it's any of those, right?
right,
Then you have the crossbow, which is what you know of it as,
right.
is the crossbow. So, but that's number one in Ohio. Then number two is straight walled cartridge, was the number two implement used to harvest deer. So, but still, the not overwhelming majority, but a good majority is archery. So it's not too far to say that, yeah, we do kind of placate to that. But I can only speak for Ohio, because that's when most people are hunting. That's when most of the time that a lot of the tactics we're talking about in this, or a lot of this, especially during the rut, it's archery season here in Ohio.
Well, and
Like, and I
honestly,
know other.
the bulk of what we think of when we do this kind of a thing, the mock scrapes and all the even real scrapes, is that, and it's up close, and it's, you know what I mean. So it is
Mhm.
archery time. So I mean, it is all up close and in your face. So that's what guys expect, and
Yeah,
that's what we're doing then. So yeah, I mean, I think we've covered some stuff.
we have covered a good bit. I think we've covered enough to where we could probably close it out, and let them know that there is more episodes to come. And definitely make sure they like and subscribe and follow us along, and make sure they follow you along in your socials and stuff, which I'll give you a chance to kind of drop those out there. We've done them before, but let's do it again. Where can they find you at?
Or they can find us obviously on Facebook at the Scrape Doctor page, Facebook page. We're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on Lemonade. I think it's there. I don't know how to use it very good, but I'm there. We're not doing the YouTube thing. It just isn't very conducive for what I do right now, so there's no need for me to do it. But other than that, you can get our products at scrapedoctor.com. My phone number's plastered all over all of that stuff. You can call me and order over the phone, whatever
Mhm.
you need to do. And honestly, I ain't got a whole lot more to say other than you can just remember that memories are forever and they're free, and we should get out there and make some.
Well, James, I don't think I could say it any better myself. And I certainly hope that we can create a lot of memories together as we continue down this road with these episodes, and getting that knowledge that you have out there to people to help them chase their experience, which is the title of the podcast, of course. Well, until our experiences cross paths again, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys are safe out there as you're chasing your own experience. And as you're doing it, we really do hope that you have the courage to fail, but yet have the humility to learn, so you're not chasing your tail all the time. And With that being said, don't forget to give us a like, follow the show, and make sure you check out the Scrape Doctor and all his products on his social medias and his website. And check us out on our social medias, which you'll get to hear all about in the closing of the show. But until then, y'all stay safe out there, and God bless you guys. Thank you for listening to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. Before you go, don't forget to leave us a review and follow the show on the podcast platform of your choice. Are you hungry for more Country Fried Outdoors? Then follow us on Instagram at Country Fried Outdoors, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Country Fried Outdoor Productions.